Hello and welcome everyone. I am Rachel Paul with G3ict and thank you for joining us for our G3ict side event today. Before we start today's program, there's just a few items I'd like to go over. All attendee microphones are muted to prevent any background noise or disruptions. Closed captioning is being provided today. You can select the closed captioning icon on the bottom of your Zoom screen to access. We also have sign language available today, and we can pin that screen if you'd like. If you hover over the sign language interpreter, there's 3 ellipse buttons, and if you click on those, you can select pin to your screen. We also are having audio description available today. There's a third-party link that I will post in the chat in just a moment if you'd like to take advantage of the audio description. And today's session will be recorded and we will let attendees know where you can access that afterwards. If you have any technical questions today or any issues, please leave a message in the chat and I will attend to that. And then throughout today's presentation, you may leave questions in the Q&A and we will get to as many of those as we can throughout. And I'm ready to turn it over to Mohammed to introduce today's program and panelists.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who are joining us from all over the world today. It's our great pleasure as Disabled Peoples International DPI to join in with our colleagues and friends from the Global Initiative of Inclusive ICTs to launch the DARE Index report. It's G3ict's initiative to monitor the progress on the development in the field of digital accessibility and inclusive ICTs. DPI and G3ict have partnered together on this important initiative in 2018 and this year. This year is an extremely important initiative to take place given the ongoing context of the COVID-19 pandemic that has shown us how digital accessibility is very important for persons with disabilities to have access to information on different response programs and services regarding the COVID-19 to maintain their safety and protection. We are very pleased to see very distinguished countries to have ranked top in terms of their performance, and the G3ict, the DARE Index report this year features different global trends and best practices of countries from different regions and of different economic and development background. We have distinguished speakers today. We are pleased to welcome you all and thank you again for your time and congratulations on the achievements that you have that your countries have made on the level of digital accessibility and inclusive ICTs. We have Mr. Axel Leblois, the president of G3ict, who is going to give us a presentation on the benchmarks of the DARE Index report. We have also Mrs. Mona Al-Mansouri from Mada Center for Assistive Technology from Qatar. We have Mr. Trevor Carroll, who is the Vice President of the Australian Federation of Disability Organizations, and he's also the Information Officer of Disabled Peoples International. We have Mr. Luis Maha from Brazil. He's a technology specialist and he's a founder of the, my MIA Different Tecnologies. And we also have Mrs. Judith Umoh from Nigeria. She's the president of the Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities in Nigeria. Each one of the presenters is going to have, except for Axel and Mr. Leblois, who's going to give a presentation, is going to speak for 15 minutes. Then the four speakers, each one of you is going to have 8 minutes. I will be following the time, monitoring the time, and I will give you a notice 1 minute before the end of your presentation, so you make sure that you can wrap up on time. Before we get started, I would like to express our excitement of having participants at this side event of more than 37 countries. And this is an important sign of how you are very interested and in this topic. This is a great sign that we may take advantage of to hopefully in the future organize special webinars for your countries, given the fact that the DARE Index report is an important tool to, number one, advocate more effectively on how to enhance countries' commitment and compliance with the disposition of the CRPD on digital accessibility standards and inclusive ICT culture. Also, it's very important to engage our fellows organizations of persons with disabilities in this very important topic and raise their awareness and enhance their capacity and to advocate more effectively around this issue. So without any further ado, I would like to turn to Mr. Leblois, who will give us the presentation on the DARE Index report results. Mr. Leblois, floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Mohammed, for your introduction. And before I start, I noticed on the chat room that some of our participants have a difficulty in pinning the video of our international sign language interpreter. So Rachel, can you confirm that this is now resolved or should? Perfect, great, thank you so much. So with that, I think people can actually still go to gallery, to the view button on the top right of the screen, click on view and choose gallery, and then the eyesight interpreter will be on top and all other speakers below. So thank you very much, Rachel, for fixing this presentation. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is an exciting time when we have a chance to share the result of the DARE Index with actually many of our participants today who were participating in the survey itself. So very heartfelt thank you to all who have participated in filling those questionnaires and providing information on what's going on in their countries. So, you know, without that incredible international cooperation, we could not be where we are now in terms of knowledge of how the situation evolves around the world for digital accessibility. Next, please, Francisca. So today, I want to emphasize a couple of points. As Mohammed explained, this is a research tool with data collected by advocates in cooperation with Disabled People International and local and regional advocacy organizations. And it's meant to be for advocates to improve their effectiveness in advancing the digital accessibility agenda of their respective countries. Next. The DARE Index has actually a very specific framework to collect data and to analyze results. And I want to start very briefly to describe you how this works. The first element that we try to check in countries is whether the country has in place the key commitment it should have in support of digital accessibility. And the way we selected those variables is really based on the text of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and some of the model policies that UN agencies such as the ITU in collaboration with G3ict have put in place to define how to best set the legal and regulatory framework to be effectively implementing digital accessibility. So this is for the country commitments. And as you normally do in human rights monitoring, it's nice to measure the commitment, but then you also need to measure the capacity of the countries to implement those commitments. So the second leg of the index is about measuring the processes, the tools that are in place in the country to implement those policies and programs. And on that second leg, it's really a yes or no, if the country has that particular process or not, is really the key measure. And then of course, the third leg is whether or not the addition of commitment and capacity to implement really yield results or not. And so what is the actual implementation and outcome is the third leg of the index. So again, to be very clear, there are three legs. In our way of counting, an index is somewhere reflecting an editorial decision. So we allocate 25 points to country commitments, 25 points to capacity to implement, and 50 points to outcomes. Total 100 points. So when you see a country score, think about X out of 100. And again, note for our experts, persons with disabilities, advocates, researchers, persons who lead organizations that are actually promoting digital accessibility or the rights of persons with disabilities. DPI has been a tremendous partner for over 10 years now in doing research around the world with G3ict. The European Disability Forum in Europe, RIADIS in Latin America, and other advocacy organizations in many regions. So it's really like a wonderful teamwork that direction is based on. Next, please. If you go to the G3ict, their index website, you will see that the data is organized by regions. And so each country has a country profile that's public. If persons who visit the website think their country is not properly rated, there is a feedback mechanism that allows our research team to dig further in the information. So it really is a very transparent process where everyone can actually look into the data and check whether or not the assessments that we collect is accurate or not. But I want to thank our team here for doing this incredible work of gathering data on 137 countries, which should represent 91% of the world population. So coming to the data for the next few slides, and in order to provide a framework for the discussion that we'll answer today, I will talk about three trends that we see that are kind of global macro trends, if you will. And then I will dive into 7 areas where we see very, very important measures that come out of the survey we did in 2020. Next, please. So the first trend that I want to share, which is not really a surprise for anyone, I suppose, is that the average their index country scores tend to be a function of countries' level of economic development. Not necessarily entirely. There are quite a few exceptions. In fact, there are quite a few countries in upper or lower middle income countries that have higher score than high income countries, and that is a good sign actually. But overall, if you take the 137 countries, you see that there is a correlation between the GDP per capita and their index score. To just give a sense of what that means, on average, the score of low-income countries is about half of that of high-income countries. And you see on that graph each column for the 4 groups, high-income, upper middle income, and lower middle income and low income, have 3 colors representing commitment, capacity to implement, and outcomes. And as you will see over the next few slides, the level of commitment is pretty pretty good in improving all over the world. And then it really is in capacity and outcome that we see the most weaknesses, especially for low-income countries where outcomes are very weak. Next, please. The second macro trend I want to share, and this is a very, very important point for the Conference of States Parties to the CRPD this year. When you plot their index score of all countries around the world, based on their year of ratification of the CRPD, what you see, and that's what this graph shows, is that the more years of ratification behind are there, the higher the score. And the more recent ratification, the lower the score. So in other terms, on average, countries that have ratified, say, in 2019, have a score that is about half on the median side from the countries which had ratified in 2007. What that says is that for whatever reason, ratifying the CRPD has actually had an impact that is quite obvious on the country's overall performance from a their index standpoint. And that shows the impact of international treaties and the mechanism that are behind those treaties to provide an incentive to countries to implement those dispositions. So I don't want to be overly optimistic. However, it will not be accurate not to share this really important piece of information that international human rights treaties do work. And this is a perfect example right here. It's slow. It's, as we say, progressive implementation. However, it's moving in the right direction. Next. The third observation I would like to make is from a regional standpoint, there are clearly correlation between region and level of economic development. So not a surprise to see Northern America and Europe on this histogram to be with higher scores than the other regions. However, I would tend to say that the regional measure is not really necessarily the best way to look at it, because if you take, for instance, the Middle East and North Africa, the region includes some of the best performers in the world, like Qatar, who is here today, but also some very, very low-income countries which have a very hard time to implement policies and programs. So the regional view actually, yes, is interesting, but it is not really reflecting in a very meaningful way anything else than the level of economic development and the year of ratification, if you look at the bottom of it. Next, please. So let's look at now the details of what's going on in terms of the country's performance. In terms of commitments, the different variables we check, of course, CRPD ratification is a key element, and that is close to 93% of the universe of countries that responded this year. But in terms of the impact of the CRPD, what you can see here is the general law, having a general law protecting the rights of persons with disabilities now exists in 88% of countries. And believe it or not, 15 years ago when the CRPD was launched, this was a very small minority of countries that had such a law. So that's a very important step to recognize. There is also a very strong progress of the number of countries that have a definition of reasonable accommodation. And from an advocacy standpoint, this is critical to push digital accessibility policies, because if reasonable accommodation is not accepted as a fundamental right, then it's very hard to, advocate for accessibility accommodation. Similarly, countries with a definition of accessibility that reflects Article 9 of the Convention. That means that includes ICTs on par with the built environment and transportation, is now up to 61%. That was in our last DARE index in 2018, 51%. So we went up by 10%. So that is an area where we see rapid progress. And our hope is that over the next 2 or 3 years, we'll catch up with the number of countries that have a general law protecting the rights of persons with disabilities, that in other terms, that all countries recognize that ICTs are an integral part of what accessibility obligation cover. Well, that's for the good news side of things. Some weak spots, we see still only 41% of countries having person with disabilities included in their universal service obligation, which is telecom related legislation, that in turn open the door to using the Universal Service Fund for persons with disabilities. That is an area where we really need to emphasize the great potential for advocacy organization to actually work with their local governments. And then another aspect that is really way behind is there is only 37% of countries which have ratified the Marrakesh Treaty, which in itself reflects the CRPD disposition that intellectual property rights should not be in the way of accessibility. But overall, as you can see, the total percentage of committed countries, 65%. I think it's a fantastic progress versus a few years ago, and we are heading in the right direction from a commitment standpoint. Next. Now, the next point I want to make has to do with capacity to implement. And yes, about 88% of countries have now a government agency for persons with disabilities. And that's, of course, very good news. It means that the agenda of the CRPD and the local legislation for persons with disabilities is definitely been focused on by governments. However, only 1% of governments have any form of group or entity that focuses on accessible ICTs. That means that in 61% of cases, there is nobody in government that really has the means to understand how to implement digital accessibility in a very focused way. That is a major weakness, and you will see in the big, in the major kind of success stories like we have today with like Qatar, for instance, the fact that there is a very strong agency focusing on ICT accessibility is a major success factor.
1 minute, Axel.
So the next slide shows the ranking of the domains where the different technologies are covered by policies. So TV is present in 61% of countries, web 58%, and education in 54%. Those are the 3 sectors which are leading the way in terms of promoting digital accessibility. Next, please. Now, one thing that I want to emphasize as a conclusion is from a global perspective, the implementation is still lagging behind. So for instance, the global average applied to ICT by ICT sector, the level of implementation is either not at all there in 3% of the cases, minimum level at 24%, and with 51% of countries with no policy, that leaves 22% of countries with some either partial, substantial, or full level of implementation. Next, please. So overall, what you can see here is that the global index scores show a 65% commitment score, a 46% capacity to implement score, and a 22% partial, substantial, or full implementation. So clearly, the interaction between commitment but much lower level of capacity to implement yield very, very limited result from an outcome standpoint. Next. Now, 10 countries have proven that things are very much possible. Qatar, Israel, Australia, France, UK, US, Italy, Malta, South Africa, Brazil, Uruguay are some of the champions that have actually made great progress in different domains. Next, please. And so the conclusion, if I look at where we see the greatest opportunities for advocates around the world, that is based on the DARE index outcome and statistics. The first thing is establishing processes for the consultation and participation of persons with disabilities in the development of digital accessibility program and policies is probably the most important step that any country can take today. Only 26% of countries involve persons with disabilities in their digital accessibility policies and program. That means that 3/4 of the world does not. And that is probably the biggest impediment to progress, because how can a country make progress without getting input from the disability community as to what are the best solutions for persons with disabilities? The second opportunity is the promotion of the training and certification of professionals in digital accessibility, because having great policies is perfect. However, if you don't have the skill sets in the organization to ensure that everything that is produced is accessible, then there is no outcome. So again, the promotion of the training and certification is critical at the university level, but also for professionals in accessibility. That's why, for instance, at G3ict, we have been focusing so much on supporting the growth of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals and their certification programs. The third point is only 44% of countries use international accessibility standards, and without following those standards, again, it's very difficult to make progress. So that's another really important aspect, whether it be the W3C WCAG standard for web accessibility or the EN standard for procurement. Those are really critical steps to take. And finally, finding a way to get the government focused on digital accessibility with some core competencies built in the government is also a critical success factor. So those are the 4 points in conclusion that we would like to derive from this year, their index results. And I hope that during the following discussion, we'll be able to come back to some of those points. Next, please. If you like to have more information about the DARE index, here are the references where you can find the DARE index results, the country profile with all the specific detailed scores, and the overall G3ict Resource Center. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Axel. This is wonderful. Again, congratulations to all of us. And yes, we see lots of progress that's happening, but we see lots of work that need to be done to improve the access of persons with disabilities to digital information and information communication technologies. We would like also to announce that the DARE Index report is available now in 4 languages: French, English, Spanish, and Arabic. The Arabic version is about to be posted soon online, so you can have access to it if you would like to read it in Arabic. Let me now move to our speakers. I would like to start with Mrs. Maha Mansouri from Mada Center for Assistive Technology, Qatar. And Mrs. Mansouri, I would like first to congratulate Qatar on being ranked #1 country in terms of digital accessibility and inclusive ICTs. And I would like to ask you, what are the factors that would make a country successful in achieving digital accessibility and inclusive ICTs for persons with disabilities based on the experience of Qatar? Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. It's a really honor that today I'm going to speak among these international expertise. I'm really happy and I am very proud that we could score this excellent score in the DARE index. Of course, it wasn't easy for us. Like any other country, we had a lot of challenges. And today in my presentation, I would like to focus on what are the steps that the state of Qatar has taken to achieve such a result. It was a long journey, but it was, alhamdulillah, successful. Based on what Mr. Leblois explained about the DARE index, first of all, I would like to thank the G3ict for this initiative, because I think that the DARE index establishes for us as experts a common ground for discussion whenever we come and talk about the digital accessibility, especially that there are now international comparable results that allow countries to benefit from each other and to learn from each other. So to answer your question, Mohammed, let me start the presentation, which will include all the information around how Qatar really succeed in the inclusion of people with disability in digital concept. So starting to talk about the law and regulation in Qatar, and I think most of the countries are achieving the same. We have a special law for the people with disability, and we have also the first document or the guidance for all the people with disability strategies here in Qatar is the United Nations Convention of the Right of People with Disability. Also, we have some financial policies around the accessibility of banking processes. Also, we have the Marrakesh Territory. And we have established a dedicated center, which is Mada Center, which is focusing and dedicated on the digital accessibility and all the assistive technology for people with disability, especially in Arabic language. So in Mada Center, we have a vision to enhance the ICT accessibility in Qatar and beyond. And when we talk about beyond, we talk about benefiting the other countries who's talking in Arabic, because as you know that the accessibility solutions are available in the English language and other languages. But unfortunately, the Arabic language doesn't have the, or is not in a lucky position to have all the solution. So this is why we put this as a vision for the center, and we made it our mission to unlock the potential of people with disability and function limitation and elderly people through the enabling ICT accessible capabilities and a platform. We have two focuses, which is based as well on the right of people with disability in education and on culture and community. In education, we are focusing on the mainstream education, on how students with disabilities can access curriculum. And also we are looking at the long life learning solutions, like the libraries, accessible books, and digital books as well. Culture and community, and we have many domains under culture, transportation, accessible transportation. We have the domain of accessible tourism, and you know that Qatar is going to receive the World Cup 2022. So we are making or preparing the country to receive all the tourists and make the country friendly for them. We also have under culture museums, enjoying the art, trying to make people with disability able to participate in the social life and on the even to participate in all the culture elements of life. Sport is another also focus for the culture, where we can make the people with disability enjoy the experience of all the activities that will happen in the World Cup. Of course, there is a new step or a new achievement for Qatar to have a dedicated committee that focus only on the person with disabilities, and it tackle not only digital but all the aspects of the life of people with disability. But part of it, a mainstream of, one of the focuses is a domain of digital accessibility, and the Ministry of Transportation and Communication is leading on this, as well as the consultation of Mada Center. We have another 15 organizations focusing on different aspects of the life of people with disabilities as well. We have key policies, and we were lucky to have the National ICT Accessibility Policy published in 2011 by the Ministry of Communication and Transportation. We have also frameworks which focuses on the website and the mobile services as well. Also, in the education, we have the additional educational support policy, which has a big part about the assistive technology and also the inclusive education. There are key programs that we are actually doing very well, which is the Mada Innovation Program. And this particular program is focusing to widen the number of Arabic solutions for the Arabic speakers. And on the innovation, we are going to talk of how we are going to do this. We have the digital accessibility program. We have the access to employment. We have the Mada inclusive portals, AT stations, inclusive digital education, building capability programs, and also the collaboration with the Smart Qatar initiative. And I want to go through them one by one. Because I think this is the part that answers the question about how Qatar could achieve this rank or this position. So for the Mada Innovation Program, actually we have created an ecosystem that will take any innovation from the idea into the market. And we have a dedicated innovation lab here in Qatar that focuses in how to support and to encourage innovators to think about the problems and cases that the people with disability are really needing some support in. Actually, we have a lot of focus groups and a lot of discussion with people with disability trying to identify the challenges that they have. Then we take these challenges, we turn them into cases, and we try to encourage all the innovators around the world, not only in Qatar, but we are participating in international platforms like Alexo Award, and we have also the Seed Star competition. So through these platforms, we can start this process, and we can get a lot of innovation that will be focused on the needs of people with disability. These solutions will not be only for Qatar, but also available for the whole region and for the whole countries who's looking for Arabic solutions. How to support the innovators? We have three tracks. The first one is to provide some fund for the innovators, the young innovators or the youth who participate in competition. So it's like seeding fund to ideas. Then we have also another layer of or another track which is focusing on the entrepreneur. So we signed a lot of MOUs in Qatar and also in outside Qatar in how to support entrepreneurs who have some ideas or ability to join this program. We have some direct grants and localization projects for small business or for companies existing. We have also the endorsement that if there is any innovation who wants really to be audited by Mada and to take certification from Mada, we can do also this process. Of course, our grants is not only financial grants, but also it's a subject matter expertise and some financial support. We don't consider it a big amount of monies, but it's enough to seed the fund for these solutions. At the end of the day, we are not owning these solutions. It is within the innovators who is going to be as a young businessman or a young entrepreneur, and this is what needs to happen. We need to expand the market of the assistive technology in the region. Another program is the digital accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Mohammed, is there any?
We have 1 minute, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. So another program, which is the digital accessibility. And in this program, we are focusing on auditing the websites of the government and also non-governmental entities to make sure that their platforms are really following the international standards. This program is really working very well for Qatar, and all the websites are not only audited by tools, but also by real users. So whenever you have a stamp, Mada stamp on any of these websites, it means that this website is really working for people with disability. So it doesn't only focus on website, we also focus on other platforms, all the digital platforms, including applications and kiosk as well, ATMs. Another program, which is the access to employment. We've noticed that the country needs a lot of support and implementing some best practices around employment for people with disability. So we are running this program in collaboration with the Ministry of Development. And in this program, we are choosing potential people with disabilities that can be trained and can be employed and applying the best practices on them. So this is one of the successful program that is happening within the employment area. Another thing that we believe that the knowledge is a key for success.
If we can wrap up, please. If we can wrap up, please.
Yes, sure. So the inclusive portals are the hub of information that we made several portals that focuses in innovation and assistive technology, and also in having a formal way to deal with the Arabic terms of assistive technology and ICT accessibility, and we made them available for the Arabic region. So instead of building things from scratch, they can have the knowledge and the experience that we've been through. And I think we are receiving a very good feedback from the Arab countries, and we have also advisory board from members from the Arabic countries to give us feedbacks on these portals. We have also AT stations because we believe that people with disability needs to access technology. So we build a lot of AT stations in education sector and in the culture sector. Especially in the education. We are running a lot of courses for inclusive education with teachers, and we are trying to introduce the concept of the latest technology and the updates of technology for these teachers. We have also the building capability program. We are running master classes and tailored training, open training programs. And this is one of the programs that we are proud of, which is the super users. It means that all these sectors has super user in assistive technology that they can run all the services of assistive technology in their sectors. Today, we have trained more than this number. This is the number from last year. And today, there is a new people trained or professional trained under this program. In Qatar, we have the smart city strategy, which is called TASMO, and this Smart Qatar initiative is collaborating with us to have a new concept, which is inclusive smart Qatar, and we are working through a plan to make all the new strategy aligned with the to be inclusive for people with disability. These are some numbers for what are the outcomes that we have achieved in education, in community, and in the employment sector. And this is up to date, what have been done until today in the digital accessibility sector. These are some picture of the current activities, like joining some exhibitions to use assistive technology as accessible customer points. We have also programs running to audit the ATMs, and we have also the online seminars, and we've just finished the Great Talks, which was talking about the digital inclusion for the Arabic region.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mansouri.
If you allow me only to say something, that as any other country, we still need to, we have areas of improvement. So right now, our focus is in TV and video programs, and also on the procurement policies. So I think we have a lot of things and a lot of area to improve as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Al-Mansouri. Sorry, I had to rush you about this. You have done a great job, and many congratulations again on this excellent achievement on digital accessibility and inclusive ICTs, ranking #1 country in the performance. Thank you very much. I would like now to turn to Mr. Trevor Carroll, the Vice President of Australian Federation of Disability Organizations. Mr. Trevor Carroll, it would be wonderful to share with us the experience that Australia has had so far in promoting digital accessibility and inclusive ICT, and the role of organizations of persons with disabilities to give input for improving this right for persons with disabilities in Australia. The floor is yours. You have 8 minutes, please. Thank you. Mr. Carroll? We cannot hear you. Rachel?
I don't believe Trevor has been able to join us.
He hasn't been able to join us. Okay. All right. Well, then let's move to Brazil. I'm sorry that Mr. Carroll wasn't able to join us. This is unfortunate. I'm sorry. Well, I wish I knew this earlier. Anyway, please, Mr. Luis, if we can speak about Brazil. You have done a great job in establishing platforms for promoting digital accessibility and inclusive ICTs in your country. And as a technology specialist working with different sectors, it would be really helpful to share with us the experience working with multi-sectoral platforms on promoting digital accessibility and ICTs in Brazil for persons with disabilities. Please, the floor is yours. You have 8 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed. First of all, I would like to thank you, G3ict, Axel, Francesca, and everybody for this opportunity. Just a short presentation of our organizations. I'm working the last almost 20 years with accessibility in Brazil and especially inclusion. I am one of the founders of Mais, Diferenças, that it's more differences. We are a not-for-profitable organization. And we are working, focus in educational and cultural inclusion, and also in advocacy. And also behind and beyond this more social and work and advocacy, I run a company, Ktalise Tecnologias, that we are working with several platforms in different areas, especially most in cultural segments, but other stuffs as well. And also working like an expert of ITU to the American regions. And it's a really pleasure to be here. First, because I believe that Brazil in the last years, we could have a lot of improvement, not only in technology, but in all segments of inclusive and accessibility. This happened actually probably by legal enforcement, not only the CRPD convention, CRPD UN, but also because the Brazilian efforts to have different legislation regarding inclusion and all stuff. It's really important to understand that in Brazil we have almost 45 million people with some kind of disability, and during this process about legislation and everything, we have a really important legislation that we started inclusive at the employment. For big companies, they are obliged to hire people with some kind of disability. So it was really important because we not only started to work with rights, but also with the empowerment of this population, giving them access to jobs, access to money. And then it was really important for this process. But more specifically, talking about the digital accessibility, I believe that the empowerment and the participation of the disability community was something really important, because this happened in the last years and they effort a lot to get part of the society and to make part of what is important for them, to access jobs, education, cultural rights, all these stuff. Talking about, for example, the importance right now in Brazilian civil society working, some months ago, the federal government was trying to change the national educational policy and trying to become not more an inclusive policy, but like a specialized policy, like 30 years ago. And then the civil society has put a lot of efforts in with the disability community. And like 2-3 days ago, we have our Supreme Court saying that the government could not do that because it's against our own constitution. We believe that this kind of thing is really important because we are not based only in a government policy, but we are trying to create like some really public policies to empowerment the disability community and to provide them different service and different possibilities to inclusion, not only in the health sector, but in employment, like I said, but also in educational and also in cultural levels. So this is really important because what we are trying to do is like to establish these possibilities and create a lot of awareness as well. So one important thing is important to say that we believe that accessibility and inclusion, it begins almost at the same time in Brazil. A lot of years ago, we weren't a really good accessible country in terms of ramps or physical and architectural accessibility. And then it's important to say that in digital, when we started to promote more accessible, things are getting better. But we had a lot of gaps, a lot of opportunities, and a lot of things to do as well. Right now, talking about websites specifically, the government, they have a program that all the federal government websites are accessible. We have some interesting initiative in other cities, for example, like São Paulo City Mayor. We have the CPA, it's like a accessibility permanent commission that just 1 year ago implemented like a digital stamps for websites that are accessible. So they are helping this as well. And we have also some civil societies working in this to promote more accessible content and accessible access to digital portals and all stuff. We are really focused, and especially my organization and my company, in provide accessible content, because we believe that this is a huge gap, because the platforms and the standards, we get improving each technology when they are changing, when they're getting better, and we create this awareness with the professionals, with the IT consultancies or development. But in the end, we also need to provide accessible for content like audio descriptions, like we are doing here today, like sign languaging and like captioning and easy lecture, all that stuff. Giving some example of what's happening during this COVID and this period, we participate in Brazil trying to bring a lot of different platforms for different segments. For example, we did like the first accessible movie theaters presentations. And then before that, we bring like ICTs and technology doing this with mobiles. And then before that, the national agency and the community became to create a new legislation that apply all movie theaters and cinemas to get accessible in the next year, but also oblige all content provider, like the majors company movie theaters to become accessible their own movies. So if they want to launch a movie in Brazil in the next year, it has to be audio description, sign language, and captioning. Other things we are doing also in museums, cultural area, we create a platform to bring audio description, sign language, audio guide that can be used for everybody, like using universal design. And most specifically right now in COVID period, we realized that the community, they didn't have access for information about what they could do or about what was the care they could have about themselves. So we create a platform, it's called BePlay, this is the one that we are using today. So in April 2, we started to do a lot of accessible content through lives, to workshops, all that stuff. And not only for sure of our effort, but right now in Brazil, it's really hard to see a big conference or a live transmission without sign language, more specific, because we have like a deaf community really strong and working for improve their access of content and information. So we believe that we have a lot of things to implement as well. Things we are struggling and we can go further. But for sure, there's a lot of things that we need to do. For example, in the area of web content and websites, the e-commerce, it's really hard to, especially for the blind community, to have access for not only the portals, but also the information. So right now, what we are trying to do as well, like societies, to implement and get more popular, for example, the audio description, like, and also the description of some pictures. So it's really common in our Instagrams, in our Facebook post, we have like hashtags that describe the content of this information. And sometimes it's really important when we put everybody together. So we are helping the government to promote and to develop some public policies in the area of inclusion and accessibility, trying to connect the civil society, but also trying to work really hard with companies, with big companies, because they need to be like an example. And right now we are trying to understand how the procurement process could be more accessible, more inclusive. Because in this situation, we can create like a whole market and a whole possibility that we can help a lot of people with some kind of disability to be included. And
please to conclude.
So, okay, yes. And that's what we are trying to do. That's our vision, is put every effort and everybody together at the same table to try to change this situation. And for sure, we are having good results, but there's a long way to go in the next years. So thank you for this opportunity. If you had any question, I'll be really glad to answer.
Thank you very much, Luis. Really appreciate it, and excellent work. And yes. Now I would like to give the floor to our last presenter for today, Mrs. Judith Ekaete Umoh from Nigeria. Mrs. Judith, if you could please talk to us about how it is important for organizations of persons with disabilities to use the DARE Index as a strategic tool for advocacy in order to overcome the challenges that are facing them to have access to digital information and communication technologies. The floor is yours. You have 8 minutes. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Mohammed, and for the opportunity to participate in this program. It's very strategic that I'm speaking last because my business was just to listen in today and to the amazing work that other countries have been doing, because only very recently we had signed an MOU with 3G to promote digital inclusion. So before I go ahead to answer your question, I just want to give a little background about my country and that what we've been doing so far towards digital inclusion. Nigeria is big as it is, and we are about population going by the 15% WHO report, we should be over 30 million by now. And we had signed UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and ratified. So that gives us a very good leverage and entering point. Recently, just 2019, after about 18 years of advocacy, we now have a law that protects the rights of persons with disability. That is another wonderful good entering point for DPOs, to run with. And not just the law, we have the law in itself established the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. So that commission will be seen to the implementation of the law. And digital inclusion is also a component of that law. Nigeria has also signed and ratified the Marrakesh Treaty. So we're not coming from zero, and lots is going on for us. So how will DPO use this now to engage the DARE index report? I have gone through it, and I must tell you, I was close to being a little bit embarrassed, but the baseline is wonderful. And now that we know, we have a clear sense of direction. Could there have been a commitment? Yes, commitment to some level, because for us to advocate, it's either we are trying to hold the government to account or we are pushing for the government to do the needful. So I think at this point in time, it would be great for us to popularize the report. We need to popularize this report amongst the DPOs. Let them even get to know what digital inclusion is all about. Let them get to know how they can engage the process, and let's see what the GTBRs have put in place to ensuring digital inclusion in the country. Once we have that clear sense of direction, it will be easy. Do we have the capacity yet to even engage this process? That'll be the question we'll be asking. So I'm happy that we have signed this MOU with, G3ic. Those are the gaps that we'll be bridging, because for DPO to be able to engage, we must be engaging constructively from the point of strength, and we must be able to build some level of content to engage. If we're engaging, will it just be noise making, or we're engaging based on the fact that there should be some value added? And the advocacy is it going to be business driven? Because if we're going to be engaging and asking the government to promote digital inclusion, I think the private sector shouldn't be left out of this conversation. How might we, design some kind of tools or advocacy strategies that will help us to allow the business community or the private community buy into the engagement that we'll be having? And how is it going to be a win-win kind of situation? Those are the kind of answers I may not have now, and I'm very happy that 3GICT may just have these answers for us. But on the side of the DPO, we are very ready. We have a well-structured, also have different federations coming together to drive the process. Let me give an example of the Nigerian Association of the Blind. They have been in the forefront trying to push for the ratification of the Marrakesh Treaty, and we were part of that process, but it was mainly driven by the Nigerian Association of the Blind until 2017 when it was ratified. Imagine if we knew better as DPOs what that value added would be to the whole community. It wouldn't have been the business of just Nigerian Association of the Blind. It would have been a kind of collective effort for us to pull through. So my submission would be, can we even have a clear sense of direction of what the survey brings us? What is the report of the survey? What are the gaps? How might we engage? What would be the value added at the end of the day? More so, we have other things ongoing in Nigeria in terms of digital inclusion, although we are doing it not in a very coherent manner. I'm sure with the that index report, we will now know how to situate our conversation and to push through. So for those gaps, systematically, we need to address it. So do we have those institutional framework within on the supply side, the government side, to align for digital inclusion and accessibility in Nigeria? That will be the question we'll be asking. We have the Ministry of Information Technology. So what is it doing? How are they going to be working with DPOs to make this happen? So on the part of DPOs, is going to be advocacy, constructive engagement, mobilization towards reaching that particular goal of digital inclusion. So like I said, I was just trying to listen in and to see how we can learn from other countries because we are just starting. But the most important thing for us here is that there's that commitment, both on the supply and on the demand side. And so when G3ic comes on board, I think we will not have it will not form like a formidable team where we can, collectively engage both the demand and the supply side to, driving the process of digital inclusion in Nigeria. But if there are other questions, I will begin to go further. I would want to take on those questions. But all my submission here is on the government side, their policies, they are good entering point. On the demand side, we need to build that capacity for engagement. I hope I've not overrun my time. If you don't mind, I like to rest for now and take questions.
You did great. You did great. Thank you very much, Judith, and actually very much on time. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I would like to again thank all of our speakers. And we learned a lot about your experiences. Congratulations again on being ranked in the DARE Index report, and also congratulations on the work that you have done. Now, I would like to open up the floor for questions and answers. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, but we can take a couple of questions if we can be quick and with the answers as well before we wrap up the session. Rachel, can you please tell us if there are any questions asked?
There was a follow-up question, I believe for Axel, about the specific organizations consulted. And the question was asked about Vietnam, which organizations were consulted by G3ict on their report. I think they were looking for some more direct who was consulted.
Yeah, so I posted on the Q&A the web page where all the responses are listed. I think the question was specific of Vietnam. I don't know if Vietnam is in that. I also should say that when we send those questionnaires to local organizations, we ask them if they want to be listed or not. So if they say they want to be listed, we list them. If they don't want to be listed, we don't. So that's the bottom of the answer to that question. But most countries are listed there, I think, in the page I posted.
All right, okay. Thank you, Axel. Any other questions?
Yes, we do have a question for Ms. Maha. What is the effort of the private sector advocating for digital inclusion in Qatar?
Actually, in all our programs, we are not excluding the private sector. The private sector is part of the what's happening, and we are also having a specific sponsorship programs for the innovation program for the private sector to help us support the people with disability. And in terms of implementation, the private sector has a role when it comes to forming programs and also benefiting from all the practices. So they are part of our advisory teams and groups. So we are dealing with the private sector as beneficiaries and as strategic enabler as well for the sector.
Thank you, Mrs. Mansouri. We can take one more question because we are reaching the end of the session. It's 9:43 here in New York. So is there any more question?
There are not any other questions posted at the moment.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Mohammed, if I may, I would like to comment on that question about the private sector.
Yes, absolutely. Please go ahead.
The context of this meeting is the CoSP, which is the Conference of State Parties. So we focus very much on government policies and programs and what's needed from a regulatory and legislative framework. However, I completely agree with the speakers today that without the involvement of the private sector, it's very hard to make good progress. In reality, virtually all solutions that make information accessible to persons with disabilities are designed by the private sector anyway. But furthermore, a very key trend over the past few years is that I think collectively we were successful at making accessibility an element of competition between big vendor companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Google, and others. You can see today that there is strong innovation coming from those companies to include more and more accessibility features in everything they do, including Zoom, including Facebook and all those companies. So accessibility has become part of the competitive landscape. That's one thing. The other aspect is in most countries, private sector actors like mobile service providers can play a critical role in relay to the government effort because they have the outreach and they also have the potential to serve persons with disabilities in many different ways, knowing especially that today, majority of internet connections are done through mobile devices. So I just want to say very quickly, there is clear evidence that to be successful, countries should involve the private sector on par with other stakeholders. And most of the biggest success stories we have seen is when persons with disabilities organizations, the private sector and the government work together.
Thank you very much, Axel. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of our time, our session here. I would like to thank all of our speakers on behalf of Disabled Peoples International, and I would like to also thank our friends and colleagues at G3ict for the excellent job and the excellent partnership. We've always had wonderful collaboration with you guys in 2018 and in 2020. We are looking forward to continuing this partnership in the future and having that the fact that we have more than 37 countries joining us at this session. This is an excellent indicator about how this work is important for a lot of people. Lots of people are interested, and we are definitely willing to work with you all, hopefully maybe in your countries, to hold webinars and also to support your work, benefiting from the outcomes of the DARE Index report, to build up and enhance the capacity of your advocacy efforts, also to support public and private sectors' efforts to adopting standards of accessible ICTs and the disposition of the CRPD. I would like to stop here, and I would like to thank you again, all speakers, and I'm so sorry if I had to rush you up to conclude your sessions. This is a difficult task to moderate a session. with so much information and very rich inputs from you all. I would like to, before we close, maybe if Axel, you would like to say something to adjourn the session.
Well, thank you very much, Mohammed. I think the session today showed how much is possible, and if things are possible in country A, things should be possible in country B and C. That's the main lesson we can learn from the session today. I would encourage countries like Qatar or Brazil or others who are among the leading countries to contribute more of their knowledge to other countries and to really foster international cooperation. I think it's a time when everyone is in the same boat, if you will, in terms of transforming the communities into virtual situations and digital resources. So I think it's super important. We are grateful for the panelists who have joined today. And Mohammed, thank you for your great moderation. I know you cut me off, but I'm happy you did because we were on time.
I'm so sorry again, and you did excellent job with your presentation, Axel. Thank you very much.
No, thank you to DPI, and again, thank you to all the respondents in 137 countries, which made that possible and create a great tool for the future. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, all, and we will stay in touch. Thank you.
Maha, nice presentation.
Thank you very much, Louis. And I'm really happy to know all of you. And I think this is not the end. We have